Glick's house. Just tell me about the beamwork, the overall goal of the project, how long the project was, about Margaret and Brian, and...
Yeah, in approximately 1996 or 7, good friends of mine, Margaret and Brian Glick, whose daughter grew up with my daughter Mariah, and they were like sisters, came to me with this idea of building a home on some lots they were able to put together and get water rights for, a little higher up the mountain than my own. And but we collaborated back and forth, and eventually came up with a little floor plan on 8.5 by 11 paper, and a little elevation of the front of the place that everybody kind of looked at the same time and said, "This is the one if we can make it work." And so we started with the barn back in about 99, I guess it was, and actually held the celebration when it turned 2000.
In the barn.
We had just gotten the doors up. I don't even think they were hinged, but we managed to get the doors up on the barn and had them sort of nailed in place to keep the wind from blowing through. And as we were finishing up the barn, a friend, Greg Gardner, was working on the concrete block foundation for this place, along with Evan Chapman and others, Evan doing the tractor work and Greg doing the block. And then we started the long and arduous task of putting this place together, which took all of the year 2000 and a little bit into 2001. But I don't know that I've ever worked with better people to work with on a project than Margaret and Brian Glick, in that they gave me a lot of free rein, if you will, and likewise understood that not everything in a construction project is going to go 100% according to plan. And when they didn't get mad or excited. They just said, "Okay, how do we make it right? Make it do what it has to do." In some ways, if you look at the exterior of the house particularly, we went to a lot of work to make things align. It's a board and bat finish in a lot of places. And so if you look closely, not only do the board and bats are symmetrical around the windows, so that there's either one bat centered above the window and they stay on layout. We arrange the doors and the windows in such a way that all the boards and bats would be symmetrical around them, but we also carried that through from the first to second floor, which was not problem, but just it took a lot of thinking. Yeah, it was a lot of math being done there to get everything to line up, but it was a chance in my lifetime to put the knowledge of construction that I'd accumulated over all those years together to make something all work together and not or find as little discord as possible.
Tell me about the take on hallways in this house.
I don't like hallways, and if I'm left to my devices, I will do my darndest to come up with a design that does not include hallways. They're wasted space. They're dark tunnels usually, unless they're very wide, in which case you might make a gallery of some sort out of them. So we always strive to come up with a design that doesn't incorporate a lot of hallway space that was, very popular in the 60s. You'd have the family part of the house, then you go down a hallway with bedrooms leading off to one side and the other. But we've always strove to make designs that don't have that situation. And we're pretty successful in this one. There's a lot of open gallery spaces that take you from one place to another. And as I say, this was one of those scratch your head and think about it a lot houses, because I had learned a lot of those lessons the hard way over the years, and said, God damn it, the next time I do this, I'm going to make sure I don't make that mistake. And for the most part, I think we carried that off in this project pretty well as a means of not having all those little mistakes pile up. We thought it through carefully enough. I remember some of the carpenters that were working for me standing around waiting while I made up my mind what or how to do something. And a couple of them saying, come on, let's just get to work. We're just wasting time here. And trying to get them to back off and, say, hey, you can't overthink something. Let me think about this a little more. Go sweep the floor, do something to keep yourself busy. It's not like I'm asking you to, take yourself off the clock. Find something to do, sort some nails or do something until I've made this decision. And then we'll proceed. And I say I don't think you can overthink something in order to make it right.
How about the outside of the house, as far as the fireplace area, pathways? I seem to remember that was pretty organic process, as far as they lived in the house with it for a while before you guys jumped into laying some of that stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, the stuff, the rockwork and so forth, that's obviously the fireplace chimney and so on and so forth, and the veneer on the house was decided pretty well on from the beginning. And one thing they did want, and we were able to achieve, was this rather large wraparound covered porch, because they knew they would do a lot of entertaining. And so as part of that theme of being able to entertain, they wanted pathways that would make it easy and hopefully delightful to meander about the yard. And so the walkways, which are mostly of stone around the building, they kind of came later, as, for the most part, as people designated the walkways by traveling in those directions, which way they wanted to go. And then we followed those walkways by putting paths therein. And of course, the owners of this project, Margaret and Brian Glick, have taken to maintaining this place immaculately, and I'm sure that's a lot of work and a lot of expense. And I haven't been involved with very many homes that were meant to be low maintenance projects. If you want low maintenance, buy a stucco box. But most of the people I've done projects for over the years have been in a position to and taken the enjoyment to maintain them beautifully. And it shows, and it's certainly a wonderful thing to wander around a place like this that we completed 13, 14 years ago, and see it in such good shape, and to think about the love that went into it in the first place, and the fact that love is ongoing in the way that it's being maintained. So that's a very enjoyable experience.